climate control, efoodsdirect.com, the letter E, foodsdirect.com, or 800-409-5633, 800-409-5633. Again, efoodsdirect.com. You'll never stand in a bread line if you have your own bread. Okay, Alan Watt, you want to continue with carbon footprint, finishing what you were trying to say before we got cut off by break, and then the chemtrails overall. I'm looking at satellite photos on the major weather sites. I'm looking at the whole world now. And I've gone back, because they have archives, as you know, but the listeners may not, of the skies 5, 10, 15 years ago. It wasn't there. Now, not just the major cities like 5 years ago, but all over the U.S., all over Europe, all over Australia, but even some in third world countries, but it's mainly in the West. It's just covered with the trails. They're now at a couple thousand feet in Austin. They stay there for hour after hour. Everybody's getting sick. Major news media has been testing it and finding barium salts, weird fibers, aluminum oxide, all of this. So I'd like you to speak to the chemtrails as well.
Yes. To get back to the footprints, the carbon ones, they're adding taxes onto air flights now too, because the future you see, they're going to ban basically tourism. That will be no longer necessary. You won't be able to travel to any country without it being required for business or work-related. That's the system they're bringing in.
And that'll all be selectively enforced. When you go travel places, you see, I'll never forget, and I'm going to let you continue, but you just bring up points. About 15 years ago, before I was even on air, I was out at Hamilton Pool, this cenote, this caved-in underground cave, beautiful, looks like something out of Tarzan, deep water, big snapping turtles and fish. And I was playing hooky from college, and I was there with a girlfriend laying out on the pebbles, on a summer day, and these Nature Conservancy people showed up, and they were making eugenics comments and going, I can't believe they allow people even here. I can't believe they even allow humans here. And they were just looking at us with anger. And then suddenly you saw the park rangers acting like that, and this whole culture that we've got to be controlled and herded into cities. So I just wanted to add that point that we're not even under the official UN plans going to be allowed in more than half of the United States on their maps alone. You will be shot if you enter it. And people didn't believe me. And then in 1999, I'll never forget, I don't remember the exact issue. I showed it on my local TV show many times and covered it on air for like a month. It was talking about an area in Asia. I want to say Burma. And it said huge national, international biosphere, UN World Heritage Sites. Hundreds of thousands of acres were off limits, and it showed soldiers with M16s, and it said if the locals try to enter to even get water or even get firewood, they are shot. And so that model's already going. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's true. And getting back to the housing, they will be coming around the houses and testing it for leakage, because if you can't heat your house efficiently and contain the heat and use very little fuel, etc., they're basically going to kick you out of that home.
Banning fireplaces, banning space heaters already in Europe, moving to do that in Canada. It just goes on and on.
Yeah, so that's the whole agenda. So through the force of law and using the power of the purse, as I call it, they'll force this whole agenda through. And
cars, airplanes, farms, ranches, space heaters, homes, food, every facet, micromanaged and taxed.
Yes, absolutely. That's the big stick, and people... We've been trained from birth to always go along with laws, and I don't question it. Everyone else goes along with the laws, so why can't you? That's what they say to you if you object.
Well, take the animal ID. Take the animal ID. It's just so incredible. They just mail them around to people. It wasn't even a law, except in 2 states, federal, and they just say, fill out this contract and sign it. And they sign away their farm and ranch, and now they're finding out they just gave the government an easement and control.
That's correct. So what we're up against here is such incredible organization. That's what really hits anyone who goes into this field of study and research. The incredible organization that's micromanaged right down to the lowest level on every particular area or facet of living. That's what strikes you as overwhelming. And it isn't until you realize this has been on the go for such a long time that explains why they're all interconnected. When Margaret Thatcher left as the Prime Minister of Britain, she said that she now belonged to the parallel government. She called it the parallel government that's made up of ex-Prime Ministers, presidents, and high officials of all countries. She says, we really run the show. And I just noticed today that Tony Blair and Merkel is over there with Sarkozy, talking about this new economic system they're bringing in. So Tony Blair, even though he's an ex-prime minister, is doing more behind the scenes than he could possibly do when he was the front man as the prime minister. He belongs to the parallel government.
He's now graduated to the real government,
yes,
which itself takes orders, while the public's focused on the front dummy puppets. And I meant to get to that story. It's up on Infowars.com right now. They're saying a new capitalism, with what you said 30 minutes ago, where the government pays all the corporations who in turn pay the people total control.
Right. That's correct. So therefore government will achieve the objective it was set up to do a long time ago, where they'll be into your personal account, and it will be used as a control factor on what you do, where you go, what you spend your money on. In fact, they can take fines right out of your bank account if you break some carbon law or whatever.
Finland's been doing that. Finland's been doing that for 16, 17 years, where your parking ticket is according to how much money you have, and if you're wealthier, they take more. It's a class thing they did to sell the public, but now it's for carbon footprint, and everything you buy and sell is tracked, and they compare that, and they say it's the world model according to how much money you make, so they can tell if you're not paying taxes or have a black market job.
That's correct. They're making refrigerators now that will read every item that's put in that fridge, and literally it can get in touch with the supermarket to reorder, but it can also obviously get in touch with the government and let them know everything that you have. They will know if all that you have, food-wise, comes from your ration, your quota, and if you're above that, they'll want to know where you got it from.
Yes, it reads the RFID, and they're by law, they're trying to make it where all refrigerators will have this within 5 years. And then now this big Masonic hospital organization, I saw the story 2 weeks ago, where the old people, if they aren't eating enough food or it's scanning their food, they go ahead and come and, take them away to be put in a home or hospice. And then they're also going to track with the school lunch program where you swipe your card. They're already CPSing children, because even if they bring their own lunch, it has to be entered in. And then they say, you weren't feeding your child healthy food, we're taking them.
That's right. And getting back to this parallel government, I mean, Professor Carl Quigley talked about this in his book Tragedy and Hope, and the Anglo-American Establishment, 2 books. He said that the parallel government runs with technocrats. Now, Blair now is a technocrat like Brzezinski or Maurice Strong or Kissinger. And he said that the prime ministers and presidents can take the heat for the policies of government, he says, but the real work is done behind the scenes with technocrats who are not responsible to the public. They're not elected by the public.
His whole life, Blair's whole life, Clinton's whole life, they finally graduate into real government.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And we're seeing it now. And I mean, why is the media even so concentrated on ex-prime ministers and ex-presidents? It's out in the open now that they are part of this important parallel government that's interlinked, interwoven completely with all of the big foundations that all work in concert. They're all on the same agenda. And they even have foundations which go out to make sure that there's consensus building within every organization, so they're all on board, on track, with the same politically correct agendas.
Simply stunning, Alan Watt. Briefly, chemtrails, they seem to be intensifying.
They are intensifying. I noticed it in Ontario when they really started hitting us 10 years ago, exactly, in fact it was. And they were much lower at the time. It was all over the sky. The scary part is that most people didn't even see this. It was much, much lower. There were wide, thick trails, maybe 10 planes at a time. And the average person that watches TV and is dumbed down thought nothing of it. But this goes back to how we're always years behind what they tell us. It's only now they're saying we're thinking of seeding the air with chemicals to curb global warming. Well, they've been doing something for 10 years, and I don't think it's got anything to do with global warming. In fact, those who watch this notice that when they heavily spray an area, it heats up underneath because the tiny refractors in the metals act like mirrors.
No, they're trying to heat. They're trying to heat. And I think they knew the sun was about to cool off, and I'm not saying they're good, but they actually need to heat the earth. Then they're trying to restrict carbon. Alan Watt, let's finish up with chemtrails, then go right to calls. Michael, Joe, Bill, Mark, Michelle, Michael, Danny, and others. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
On September 11th, 2001, along with hundreds of my fellow troops, I went to Ground Zero, and we knew what to do. Or at least we thought we did.
Truth Rising is a breakthrough 9/11 film that finally gives first responders a platform to tell their story.
Whitman, EPA director, on the 18th made a statement.